HP because the company just got awarded $50 million in federal CHIPS Act money. It's for semiconductor manufacturing. Many of Oregon's top political leaders were here congratulating each other. You'll hear from them. But we'll also hear from a company leader about the interesting path that HP has taken from its founding to printers to laptops to today. First, the money. $50 million in the semiconductor world is not an enormous amount, but it's not nothing. And it did generate a lot of enthusiasm at HP today.
$50 million. That's not bad. Those are our taxpayer dollars being brought back here to do work for Oregonians.
We now have 50 million pieces of evidence that Washington, D.C. knows where Corvallis is.
$50 million. CHIPS and Science Act. That is amazing.
Oregon Senator Jeff Merkley spread around the congratulations.
Senator Wyden and I and our congressional delegation, we were absolutely cheering on the CHIPS and Science Act. And a huge kudos to the governor and the state legislators for leading the Oregon CHIPS and Science Act that's a complement to what's happening at the national level. Well done, Governor.
So you can see lots of excitement there, and congrats to HP. The company says one specific impact will be hiring about 100 more people, although that may not happen for another 12 months or more. Among the folks attending, you saw Governor Tina Kotek there. She complimented HP workers and the company, and she is rightfully proud of the Oregon CHIPS Act, which she helped push through the legislature. HP is getting an additional $10 million from that program, which set aside as much as $240 million to help Oregon companies expand and then apply for that big-time federal money as well.
Because it's not enough to pass a law, and I would say some other states aren't even passing laws. It's not enough to say we have money. We have to be able to say, okay, we're here to work with you. What do you need? Let's get your application to work. Let's move your money. You needed to know, companies like HP needed to know that there was money on the table from the state while they were pursuing help at the federal level. Because we can't do the things we need to do in our state and across the country without that kind of public leadership, private sector partnership.
By the way, that backdrop that they're standing in front of is meant to represent the garage where HP was founded way back in 1939. On a different wall in the same room, there were displays of the technology from HP going back through the decades. They are an interesting contrast to one of the areas this company is now exploring, something called microfluidics. HP did not have any video that we could use to explain what that means, but thankfully, Boston University does, and you're looking at it. They too are exploring the ways that very small amounts of fluids can be moved through various devices. As Boston University explains it, it's almost like a circuit board, but it uses fluids instead of electricity, super tiny. Tuan Tran from HP says it is an exciting part of the future.
We're into drug dispensing, we're into single cell kind of drug interaction for research cancer, we're into 3D printing and other future things we won't talk about today, but some very, very interesting things happening in our labs.
We look forward to learning about that. All right, so you still with me? The federal government awarded HP $50 million today to help expand its research and manufacturing, especially its work with microfluidics. One of the people at the presentation is the Undersecretary of Commerce. Her name is Lori Locascio. I'm telling you about her because she manages the federal CHIPS team for the Biden administration, but she's also a biotech scientist and an inventor herself with 12 patents. And she is very much into microfluidics.
On a personal note, a lot of people have already noted that microfluidics is a core part of my life's work and my research. And at the end of the day, I'm just an inventor at heart. And I have to say, you put me in front of this garage and I want to go in and tinker. This is awesome to be here. I know firsthand the innovations that like microfluidics offers applied to the life sciences can be game-changing, leading to new tools for drug discovery and single-cell analysis for advanced diagnostics. These can really bring breakthroughs to the healthcare industry.
Now, many of you folks like me think about printers or computers when we think about HP. So when I got a chance after today's main event to talk with their people about this medical side of things, I asked how it connects to their core mission. I'm thinking of HP and laptops and printers and all that kind of stuff, and now it sounds like almost you're going into medical research. Is that kind of a curve for you guys?
Well, if you think about the fundamental technology, so if you think about printers, it's basically the ability to actually drive, fluids and deliver fluids at picoliter scale. And so that has applications in many other spaces. And so for us, we absolutely are in drug research interaction, single cell dispense today. And for us, we're looking for opportunities across semiconductor to get into different areas with that technology. So yeah, we're a technology company at the end of the day. We happen to have products in PC and print, but really our core foundation is a technology company. We find opportunities and solve the world's problem through technology.
And when I took my tour here, it was one of the things that really, it was a wow factor. You think about the changes in medicine and people come up with these great ideas, but you need the technology to actually implement it, and to see some of the work that's coming on the microfluidics has real life application. So it's going to make things better for a lot of folks, and we're doing it here in Oregon.
Super interesting, and I gotta say, I'd never heard of it till today. Just for context, by the way, that $50 million that HP is getting, it is a lot of money, but it scraps compared to what Intel got. Intel got $8.5 billion in grant money and an additional $11 billion in loans. That's for projects in several states, including here at home. So, what do you think about this new federal CHIPS money coming to Oregon? Keep it coming and further expand our Silicon Forest, or do you have concerns about it? Email us and let us know your thoughts, will you? The address is thestory@kgw.com, or call and leave a voicemail. The number is 503-226-5090. Now let's turn to deflection in Multnomah County specifically. In just 5 days, drugs become illegal again throughout the state of Oregon. People caught with user amounts will have the option of drug treatment over jail, at least in theory. Each county is preparing their own deflection plan right now to offer that treatment. And I gotta say, if this were a college paper due, Multnomah County would be looking at several all-nighters to get it done in time. Portland's mayor called the county's plan so far a leap of faith. Here's Blair Best.
The debate over deflection in Multnomah County continues, leaving many Portland City commissioners unimpressed.
I'm frustrated and I'm becoming very impatient.
Well, I think there are a lot of questions that still have to be answered.
A Tuesday morning, and for the first time, the county officials publicly presented the city with their plan for a deflection center, a place on the Central East Side where people caught solely with possession of hard drugs will go if they choose treatment over jail. That option becomes available on Sunday, when possession becomes a crime again in Oregon.
And it's the 27th, and officially we're supposed to start on the 1st.
I'd like to see this move much faster, just like all Portlanders would.
This cry for urgency comes on the heels of the county chair's decision last week to delay opening the center to October, launching mobile deflection instead, sending outreach workers to the streets as a temporary alternative.
This is basically a 6-week trial period, if you will. We think mobile deflection, particularly part-time mobile deflection, is not a good long-term solution.
Mayor Ted Wheeler now threatening to direct Portland police to arrest people instead of offering mobile deflection if the county does not open the center as planned by their new October deadline.
And in the absence of a working deflection program, what we will do is we will arrest people and we will book them.
The county admits they will only have enough staff to offer deflection from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. Monday through Friday. After hours, people will be cited or taken to jail.
Again, that is an obvious flaw with the program.
Among the city's growing concerns, safety for the neighborhoods surrounding the deflection center, which includes a preschool that sued the county on Monday for privately making decisions about the center. Here's the attorney behind that case.
As we've told them before, if we need to go in for a court order on an emergency basis to stop the opening of the center, we'll do that. We don't have to do that today because they've given themselves more time, but we're watching very carefully.
All right, so a lot of pressure on the county coming from all different angles here. They did not respond to our request for comment regarding that lawsuit, but we are told they're meeting with the surrounding community here at some point today. Pat?
All right, well, it'll be interesting to see what happens there. But moving back to the city commissioners, what else about the county's plan did they not like? What raised red flags?
So across the board, city commissioners are pushing the county to open a sobering center. That's different than a deflection center. A sobering center is a place that first responders can take people under the influence to free up emergency room beds and jails. The county does have plans to open a few sobering beds here in this building behind me at some time next year and a full sobering center in 2026. But both the mayor and the police chief have expressed previously the need for one sooner. And while the county understands that need, they said today, given permitting and construction timelines, they couldn't open one sooner than next year, even if they wanted to.
Yeah,
Pat?
it's an interesting answer. I know that when we interviewed Commissioner Julia Brim Edwards, she was quite skeptical about the whole build out and thinks that a simple building could probably be put together pretty quickly. So that's another piece that we'll wait to see how that plays out. All right, now what about this 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. timeline for deflection? What if someone's picked up at 7:59? What if they're picked up at 9:01? Different chances for deflection?
So it really all comes down to staffing. The county is still hiring people to work this center, and they said those are the hours that they can realistically offer deflection, which is raising major concerns for some city councilors, including Mingus Maps, who lives in this neighborhood. Take a listen.
I live in this neighborhood all the time. I will tell you, we have a young lady who walks by my house about 5:45 in the morning, screaming at demons, which are not there, and she wouldn't qualify for this program, so there are a lot of concerns.
If we get any word that we're not actually going to move to a full-time facility that includes sobering beds, that does the work that is required to be done under this initiative, then we're going to have to reevaluate our partnership. Our only role is from a law enforcement perspective. So it is the county's teams that will be providing that mobile deflection. Our job is to enforce the law, which we're allowed to do under state statute starting on September 1st. The public expects that we will enforce that law, and it's my expectation that the police bureau will enforce that law. They obviously want us to have a working deflection program, but if it's not working, the only tool available to us as a municipal government is arresting and booking. And I just wanted to be very clear with everybody about that today.
All right, Blair, and it's fascinating that this has been coming for months and months and months. In some counties, like Washington County, for example, they don't have buildings in place, but they do have teams in place to handle this. And here in Multnomah County, sounds like we're still going to be racing the deadline. All right, now, what about the lawsuit by the preschool? What are they hoping to get from filing this lawsuit?
So that lawsuit alleges that the county violated Oregon public meetings law by making private decisions about deflection. I mean, just remember, many of these decisions came from Chair Jessica Vega Peterson and her quote-unquote leadership team. So we talked with the attorney for the preschool whose children attend that school. And here's what he told us today that the school wants from the county.
Right now, we've focused only on the public meetings law violation. The relief we are seeking is to void all of the decisions of the county leadership team that has designed the deflection center and the deflection program, enjoin them from continuing to meet in private and forcing them to meet in public, and then seeking our legal fees for having brought the case. County staffers have tried to listen. I don't think they've really heard us. I mean, we have very serious concerns about the plans for the project and whether it will be safe.
All right, now as for what comes next in this whole saga, the center is again expected to open sometime in October, and Mayor Wheeler challenged county leadership today, asking them if they could commit to that timeline, that deadline, and they expressed confidence that they could. Pat?
All right, we'll be watching. Thank you, Blair. Great stuff as always. Up next on the story, a fascinating election. It's the closest race in the Washington primary ever. And it's triggered a hand recount of nearly 2 million ballots statewide. Amazing. Why the Clark County Auditor welcomes the time-consuming task that began today, when the story returns. In case you missed it earlier, your Fred Meyer store could look a lot different for the next week. 4,500 workers with UFCW Local 555 plan to walk off the job tomorrow morning at 6 a.m. with the strike lasting until next Tuesday, unless a deal is reached beforehand. The company just told us the stores will stay open, by the way. The union says it has filed what are called unfair labor practice charges against the grocery store chain. The two biggest sticking points, retirement and wages. The strike will affect 28 Portland metro area stores, including Scappoose and Gresham, though not the Salem area. Now, this is happening the very same week as the federal trial in Portland regarding Fred Meyer's parent company, Kroger, trying to merge with Albertsons in what would be the largest grocery store merger in U.S. history. Now, the union doesn't like it, and neither does the federal government, in part because of concerns that it will hurt union workers. Again, that strike coincidentally set to begin tomorrow morning at 6 as their union leader, shortly before their union leader, is going to testify in that federal court case. All right, tune in to our Sunrise newscast for live coverage on that. Moving on. Washington State's primary election was exactly 3 weeks ago, but there is still one statewide race that is definitely up in the air. Nearly 2 million ballots will have to be recounted by hand to determine who moves on to the general election in November. We're talking about the race for Commissioner of Public Lands. Now, that person will oversee about 6 million acres of public land in Washington and enforce environmental laws on those lands. The top two vote getters move on to November. Former Republican Congresswoman Jamie Herrera Butler easily took the top spot, but the race for second, oh, that's a much different story. Democrat Dave Upthegrove and Republican Sue Keel Peterson are separated by just 51 votes. That's an incredibly small number. Each got over 396,000 votes. All right, so here are the thresholds for what triggers either a machine recount or, in this case, a hand recount. The difference needs to be less than 1,000 votes and 0.25% between the two candidates. In this case, oh, they definitely met that. They are 64 0.10% apart. So, yeah, this one does qualify. This race for second place is the closest statewide race in the history of Washington's primary. The last election that triggered a statewide recount was back in 2004 when Christine Gregoire became governor by just 129 votes after 3 different recounts. The last statewide primary race that triggered a recount was in 1960 when 252 votes separated 2 candidates for superintendent of public instruction. In nearby Clark County, elections workers spent the weekend and Monday sorting ballots by precinct, and the hand recount of around 137,000 ballots in this current election began today.
It's not all bad that we're doing a manual recount once in a while in Clark County, because the manual recount is truly the best test in the integrity of an elections process. When you've got humans, 2 humans looking at an individual ballot and just focusing on that one race, they're looking at it really intently. And so it will, we believe it will reinforce people's confidence in the integrity of the elections process here in Clark County and in the state.
Very nice. Washington's Secretary of State's office expects the recount to be completed by early next week to determine who moves on to challenge Jamie Herrera Butler. Now to homelessness. But before you assume that we're going to point out more problems, just hold on. We're going to offer what appears to be a bit of good news. The Joint Office of Homeless Services, paid for by the City of Portland and Multnomah County, reported that in the fiscal year that ended this past June, thousands of people were helped. They reported that 5,477 people were placed into housing. That's up nearly 28% from the year before. And a total of 15,074 people were in housing programs, which includes those new folks and other people who were already there. That's up nearly 10%. On the other hand, each of the last 3 years has seen fewer people enrolled in homeless prevention programs. The number of newly enrolled people was 13,267. That's down 39% from the year before. And total people enrolled in the program was 18,802. That's down roughly 37%. Dan Field, the head of the Joint Office of Homeless Services, says there's far more work still to be done.
We absolutely still have tremendous need on our streets, and nobody is confused about that. We are leaning in every day to address to what we see not only in our streets but invisible homelessness as well. We know that we have people who are housing insecure. They may be doubled up, sleeping on a friend's couch, sleeping in their car. We don't see them, but they need our support as well. But what this report tells us is that year 3, we're starting to see the outcomes we expected. We're seeing more people move into shelter than ever before. We're seeing people move into permanent housing, and we need to build on that success. So this is all about us building momentum. We're not near the finish line, but we're headed in the right direction.
Well, that's nice to hear for a change, huh? Dan Field said he knows the public is concerned over the way that taxes raised to help the homeless are spent. He said he welcomes the scrutiny and that he's a taxpayer himself. That's good, Mr. Field, because we do plan to keep a close watch over what's happening there. Speaking of housing, Oregon and Washington have joined in on a federal lawsuit involving rent prices. The Department of Justice has filed an antitrust lawsuit against a software company who they say is a big driver of hiking up prices. It's called RealPage. It takes information that landlords supply, like rental rates, lease terms, and projected vacancies, and then it uses an algorithm to tell landlords what they should be charging. Attorney General Merrick Garland says that's an antitrust violation because landlords who should be competing with each other are effectively working together to share information and to fix prices.
We allege that this software is developed, marketed, and sold to enable landlords to sidestep vigorous competition in the rental market. Competing landlords agree to submit to RealPage on a daily basis their most sensitive, non-public information, including rental rates, lease terms, and projected vacancies. RealPage then combines this data from competing landlords and feeds it into an algorithm that provides real-time pricing recommendations back to the competing landlords.
Now, RealPage goes a step further, according to Garland, who says the software company actively polices landlord compliance with their recommendations. We also talked with Portland tenant rights advocate Margot Black.
You've got sophisticated proprietary algorithms looking at proprietary data that the average consumer can't see. Then it really begs the question of how this market rent is being determined, because we don't know what factors are going into that algorithm, but we know what's coming out, and what's coming out is that we're just seeing this steady increase in prices.
RealPage did release a statement, by the way, saying that they are, quote, disappointed that after multiple years of education and cooperation on the antitrust matters concerning RealPage, the DOJ has chosen this moment to pursue a lawsuit that seeks to scapegoat pro-competitive technology that has been used responsibly for years. The company calls the lawsuit a distraction from the issues driving inflation and housing affordability. Keep it right here on The Story. We're back with a final word right after this. Well, that's the end of our show. Thanks so much for watching and for commenting. We see your comments coming in. You're a big part of our show. Remember, the story, our collective story, that never ends. The good stuff's coming your way next, and I'll see you right back here tomorrow night at 6:30.